Culture fit, culture add, and values alignment. I think there's a risk if we focus only on culture fit. Our risk is if you do what you've always done, you'll get what you always got. And what are you missing?
I would, let's say, pass on a candidate and someone says, well, I interviewed them and I didn't think they were a great fit, culture fit. I always ask why. Why? Give me your reason, and can you also provide some examples? What about how they answered that question made you think they didn't have a culture of food safety or value for food safety? Welcome back, everyone. We are now on episode 4 of Hot Perspectives, the show. I am thrilled to have my guest here, Allison Seguin, and she is... How do I describe Allison? Oh my gosh. Well, we were just talking about our origin story and the fact that
the whole story
that we met on the trade show floor. But before we jump into how we met, I'd love for you to introduce yourself a little bit and correct me on the pronunciation of your last name if need be. Say it 2 times for the people.
Absolutely.
And yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself and your experience in franchising.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, Maliesa, just how fun is it to get to be here with you after all these years of just sort of, cheering you on from afar. My name is Allison Seguin. I have been in franchise development for a little over 4 years now. I'm currently a director of franchise recruitment with a national restaurant chain. And restaurants are my background. Before I started on the Fran Dev side of things, I spent probably the first decade or so of my career working in full service restaurants, most of them chain restaurants. I got the opportunity to be part of training teams, help open new stores, and that's sort of where my roots are, and I bring that with me to FranDev.
Nice.
Yeah. Did that answer all the questions? There were a few there.
Yeah, no,
okay,
it was
good.
Just tell the people a little bit about yourself, and then, we'll get into a little bit about how we met, I think, would be
I would
be
love
great.
that.
Yeah. So we're just talking about how we met. It would be, 2 years now ago?
I think more.
3 years, maybe?
I think closer to 3, if I'm not mistaken.
And I had just started Hot Perspectives, wasn't exactly sure how to talk about myself or my business. I'm still kind of working on that. But I knew that I was really passionate about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And that is the message that I wanted to bring to the space. And I remember seeing you and being like, I'm going to go say hi. And I said hello, but it was very quick because if you know Allison, if she's on the trades show floor, she has people lined up to talk to her. Something about that energy. It doesn't matter what brand she's representing and you're representing, you have that. So anyway, how do you remember it?
Well, for me, I remember you coming around and introducing yourself and just sort of building your network. And it was really refreshing to meet you. I had, I wasn't too far into my journey into FranDev, coming fresh from the restaurants. And for me, the very first thing that struck me kind of entering FranDev as a space is there's a lot of very old, you might even say dusty processes. And I think we're missing fresh perspectives of, DEI and otherwise in terms of how we are representing the business to prospective franchisees, how we are, building out our FranDev processes internally, all of those things. There's opportunity there. And you were a breath of fresh air. You brought a fresh or hot perspective,
Yes.
even in the first couple minutes of meeting you. And we're always refining our pitch. That's not something you need to feel weird about. It's living and breathing like our businesses and like ourselves and like people are, right? So that, for me, just meeting you on the trade show floor, I remember it. I do. And we didn't get the opportunity to really work very closely on anything for years. This is sort of the first time, and I'm so excited to be here to actually sit down and be in a room with you.
Yeah.
I'm so excited.
Without 100 people around, also, looking for attention and time. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is an amazing opportunity, and I'm so happy to be here and just spend the time with you. I've been admiring you from afar, and getting to brush shoulders with you here and there, and excited to have the conversation today.
I appreciate you, and I appreciate the support. You're always showing up for the support. It doesn't take much to like, comment, share, recommend,
Absolutely.
Make an introduction, and you've done all of those things. So thank you very much.
Well, you're very welcome.
Yes. So I think maybe you've caught an episode or two.
I have. I studied at least a little bit.
So how things are done around here, we got the red baggie, and we're gonna answer some questions, some Fran Dev questions. And just a reminder, we are here just on behalf of ourselves to share our honest, open, transparent views and perspectives. We're not representing any brands, and we don't really talk about brands specifically. So hopefully you can answer and be enlightened and enlighten the people a little bit about Fran Dev.
All right.
All right, let's get to it. So you'll pick the question and then hand it on over, and we'll get into it.
The energy on this one is good. This one.
All right. Ooh, I didn't know we were going to be coming out swinging. Okay. Where in the vetting process might good candidates be getting left out?
Amazing.
And how can we fix it?
That's the real question. So in terms of the vetting process, I usually say approval process is the first thing I'll say, not to be too picky about terminology, because I think as long as we know what we're all talking about, really at the end of the day, it's okay.
Yeah.
I prefer approval, first of all, to vetting. These are not animals. These are people. I grew up on a farm. Vetting is different for me.
Absolutely.
So in the approval process, it's an interesting thing because I do think there are a lot of different drop-off points. And part of that's by design. We cannot and should not award an opportunity to everyone.
Yes.
But I think a stage where I have seen the most opportunity is actually in the initial kind of intro stage. I think that we can be missing good candidates at that stage. Again, because we're talking about losing good candidates.
Yes.
If there is a lack of transparency, if they perceive your process as opaque, frustrating, shrouded in mystery, I think if we don't do a good job of breaking down what it is we expect of them along the rest of the approval process and what it is we're offering, if we cannot be clear and simple in our message and process, you'll lose people right from that point, especially in the franchise space. A lot of the time our audience is, in many cases, obviously depending on your brand, often their first time business owners. This is kind of their first foray into entrepreneurship. The reason why they're exploring franchise is because they want structure.
Yes.
And so if you have a process that, your Fran Dev process is not mirroring the type of structured processes you have in your business model, well, there's already a bit of a clash
disconnect there. Yeah.
So transparency is huge. Not assuming that candidates know everything we're talking about. That would be a major drop-off point in my experience, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But a second opportunity equally, and this is one that is always shocking to me, interviews. How thoughtfully are your interview processes actually built? First of all, are you winging it? Right? Which happens. It happens.
We know.
People are winging it out there. People are like, oh, I'm just going to talk to this person. And it's fun to just
feel
talk
them
to
out.
People. But this is not a, coffee. This is, we're trying to assess somebody and decide, if this is a mutual fit.
Yes.
So I think your interview grids need to be, first of all, existent.
Yes.
They need to be around. And I think they need to be really thoughtfully designed. You want to be asking questions that actually help you understand the candidate and particularly their skills. Something that I will, this is the hill I'm going to die on.
Yeah.
Anyone who's met me and worked with me in a Fran Dev space knows I say this all the time. Experience and skills are two different things. Experience is where someone has existed over a portion of their life or a portion of their career.
Yes.
It doesn't mean they learned anything. It doesn't mean they were necessarily good at it.
That part, I'm
we can pause there
because that part.
Yeah.
I've met some great leaders, motivating people who may not have done exactly my role or done the tasks that are a part of my scope or responsibility, but they know enough about the way things happen, the processes around it, and we're able to speak on the same level. I've also met some managers, is what I'll call them, because they're different than leaders, who have no clue, aren't interested in having a clue, and therefore end up steering me in the wrong direction, slowing me down, And so taking the time to understand every single part of the process involved in vetting or recruiting a new franchise partner is so critical, not just for the person doing the interview, but for everyone that's involved in the process from start to finish, including the interviewer. That doesn't matter if it's the operations interviewer, there to specifically vet that part. If it's the finance interviewer, maybe really interested in getting into the numbers and having them explain that part.
Yeah.
But having that process in place to understand, to your point, the skills and the experience and how
do
they
they
come
go?
together,
Yeah.
or not.
Or not, right? It can be either one.
Yeah.
It's exciting when we see a candidate with what seems like a very relevant or accomplished background. We need to remember a few things. Not everyone's had the same opportunities in life to build those backgrounds that look so impressive.
Yes.
And skills can be built in non-traditional environments. So
Yes.
a well-designed interview grid that helps you assess specifically for skills is going to help you mitigate bias. It's going to help you achieve better results and really focus on higher quality candidates. I just think there's so many benefits to it, and it's such low-hanging fruit to actually just sit down and
develop it.
And develop it, right?
Yeah.
It's not something that you need to make a huge investment as an organization. You can do it.
Yeah.
Like, it's something I really believe. You know, you take the week or so to sit down, brainstorm it out, refine it a little bit, identify the skills that you want to assess for. And there's all kinds of tools out there that you can use to even refine these things, right? You can find sample interview grids online. You can educate yourself on it pretty well if it's not a space you're comfortable in.
Yes.
I also think that we can educate ourselves in FranDev in this particular part of the process. You know, there's resources built for recruiters who are hiring rather than doing FranDev. Right. There's a little bit of overlap.
Yeah.
I think if we know our roles, we know where that overlap ends.
Yes.
But it doesn't mean that we can't learn from the hiring kind of recruiting space as well.
Yeah. When I reflect back on the question a little bit about, you know, where are candidates potentially getting left behind, because I've seen a really different change in the landscape of applicants in the franchising space, where many of them are immigrants or first-generation Canadians. They're coming with cultural differences. They're coming with different work experiences, skills, and not having those systems and processes and tools built in a way that considers that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can absolutely filter out and disadvantage people that are qualified, passionate, great fits. Some of the most successful franchise partners I've worked with across brands have been new immigrants. Fastest growing, they're the best ambassadors because they tell their friends and family, and
You're absolutely right.
they share their success stories with their communities and bring more people in, and you know, you're able to achieve great things. And so, you know, when you mention not having taking steps to not have bias creep into those decisions, can you share maybe one or two tips specifically around supporting this kind of new wave and new generation of entrepreneurs and franchise partners? What are some steps that, you know, FranDev professionals can take to make sure their systems are built in an inclusive way?
Yeah, specifically for newcomers.
Yes, for sure.
So steps that you can take to make sure that you're building a system that's inclusive to newcomers. You know, first thing is we want to really do a bit of a gut check. And again, skills and experience are different. Experience is still something we look at because it gives us a starting point. Don't discount experience from another country. So many times I'll have an initial conversation with a candidate who is a newcomer or a new Canadian, and they'll, you know, give me their background and they start with, well, I moved to Canada and then they tell me what they did since then. They lived a whole life before that, right? What other experiences and skills have you built wherever you have been before you got here now? So the first thing is just to actually be aware that skill doesn't only exist in Canada.
Hey, that part!
So that part, like to really open up, and actually, ask the question. A lot of them, I think they're used to having their back home. They always say back home, and I
Yes.
love that, like, because it's the heart position. Um, they're used to having their back home experience kind of minimized or discounted.
Yeah.
And so they might not volunteer it. So go ahead and ask. Give
Yeah.
people the opportunity to share their story and watch them light up in front of you. That's what we should be doing with our candidates, is giving them the opportunity to shine. Another thing that I would say that we can do to make the early stages of our process more inclusive to newcomers, be mindful of jargon or industry specific words. There are two words that seem pretty simple if you've been in this space for a while, that a newcomer or even just someone new to business might not understand in the same way that we mean it. And one of those words is opportunity. We often talk about, the franchise opportunity we are offering. Opportunity means a lot of things in a lot of contexts. What does that mean? If it's that this is an opportunity, to own a region or a market, is this an opportunity, to develop new in a province, right? Like, you need to actually define what you mean when you say opportunity. What's a franchise opportunity? Is it a franchise for sale? Like, what is it?
Yeah, I love that, because the experience of opening a new unit or breaking into a new market is very different than a resale opportunity or a resale experience. Is very different than coming in and building brand new. And is very different from owning and then rapidly growing or scaling at a multi-unit level, which we are seeing a lot more multi-unit franchisees come through, right? That are interested in developing 2, 3, 4, 5 units over a certain amount of time. A lot of development agreements happening too. So really taking the time to clarify that
the
is
language.
important. Yeah.
And I guess I would say, like, the opportunity thing has been on my mind. It's been sort of a top of mind thing for me lately. I've been kind of delving a little bit into, keywords and things like that. What are people searching online when they are trying to find what I call a franchise opportunity? And a lot more people are searching on Google or whatever search engine, franchise for sale. Franchise opportunity ranks a lot lower in search results. And so that can give us a little bit of insight into language people are using and comfortable with. We can actually use that data, talk to your marketing teams, use that data, see what language people are using, and use that language back to them for better understanding. And the second word that, again, feels comfortable to those of us already in this space, but might not be as clear for those just joining, again, whether new to Canada or just new to business, is the word we toss around all the time: investment. The investment is, right? Usually, at least in the spaces I've worked, usually when we talk about the investment or the initial investment, we mean the entire cost to open the new business. Build cost, equipment cost, some soft costs in there, all those things. And we throw out a big number, like whatever your business model, whatever your typical initial investment is, whether it's $1 million, 500,000, whatever. We'll say, the investment is $1 million. Someone who's new to this space doesn't know exactly what that means as it applies to them. Does that mean I need $1 million in my bank right now? I don't have that, right? What does that mean?
Yes.
You want to make sure you're very clear about that. They might be confusing investment with cash required.
Right.
So use specific language, use layman's terms. Don't be afraid to define these concepts to help people understand what our requirements are. If I'm on an initial call with a candidate and I say the initial investment's $1 million and I just skip on to my next point, that person might not call me back or pick up my call the next time I reach out to them, because they're like, well, I don't have $1 million, Allison, right? Like, you have to be aware of your communication skills and how people are understanding words that feel familiar to us. Do they mean the same thing to the person hearing them? So that's an easy one as well, I guess I would say.
Yeah, and you make really great points, and thank you for sharing those two examples. Those are two very good examples. And when I talk to people about the steps that you might take to start working on that, or making sure that you're hitting the mark and that your intentions are actually landing the impact, check in with people. So reach out to a candidate and say, hey, did you have any questions? I wanted to provide an opportunity. There's clarity here. Maybe bring in a small focus group or test group where you can put some documents in front of them and get some live feedback and see what questions come up. So I love that you brought up data and working with marketing teams on, search like Google, because I think that's a great place to start as well. And don't be afraid to tap into a little
Yeah.
AI magic, because that's there too, a resource that's there. Yeah, I love that. Okay. Yeah, that's a good one. I think we'll maybe go to our next question.
Okay. You use good quality paper, I just want to say.
Thank you. This is nice because we met on a trade show floor, and I see a lot of franchisors go here to be visible. So the question is, how can franchisors make opportunities more visible, especially for those who may not see themselves represented?
Okay, how can franchisors make opportunities more visible to those who might not see themselves represented? So that's huge. And I think at the core of that question is just the understanding that, there's a saying, you have to see it to be it, right? It's hard for someone to envision themselves on a path that they've never seen anyone who looks like them or with a story like them actually living out.
Yes.
Right? Like, that's great for other people, but what about for me? So how do we do that? How do we show people that they absolutely can fit here? And I think that's maybe the $1 million question. Yes. I think it also kind of calls back to the power of storytelling. I think wherever possible, in your network, if you do have, inspiring stories, leverage that, right? Yeah. Make sure that you are featuring stories from actual franchisees of all kinds of different backgrounds. If that's not necessarily possible in your network, and that's something that you've identified as maybe a little bit of a challenge to overcome, can you at least highlight franchisees who, joined your system maybe through unique or non-traditional paths or different backgrounds? Right. That can at least help expand the message that more than one kind of background is welcome here. More than one kind of background can find success here. Yes. And I mean, also, just to not hopefully sidetrack too far, but isn't it our job as franchisors to create a system that can be replicated and taught, like truly at the base of it? Yes. It should not be entirely dependent on one type of human being to keep doing it. I think that onus is a little more on our side. That's my opinion. Yeah. We talked a little bit about avoiding jargon, heavy words. I think that applies here as well. Yeah. But in terms of visibility specifically, we want to go beyond traditional recruitment channels. And I would say the traditional recruitment channels, trade shows are a huge one that we've relied on since the dawn of time. Yes. Or the dawn of franchising, whenever that was. But I think another really big one that, I've seen in this space, a lot of brands are relying on leads that come in through their website, whether they're finding the website organically just because you have a brand that happens to be very recognizable and you can just kind of benefit from those natural searches, or whether you are driving them there through advertising. And so I would say, like, with your website, it's the lowest hanging fruit. It's an important lead generator. And for, most of the experience I've had, it's been the primary lead source. Yeah. It should not be your only one, because the people who are finding you on your website are the people who had to think of you first. And so it's going to be people who already think of themselves as entrepreneurs. You're not getting beyond, you're not reaching a very wide audience, because you're actually not reaching out at all. Yeah. You're sitting there waiting to be found. Yeah. And that's okay. You've got to be easy to find as well. That's important. Passive recruitment strategy is just as important as active. Yeah. But if we want to get active, and if we want to specifically think about channels to get in front of others who might not yet be considering what their potential opportunity could be in franchising, think about not just trade shows that are franchise specific, but other business fairs, other entrepreneurial spaces, business organizations for certain groups of people, like newcomers, right? Or all kinds of different identities. All these types of business councils exist, and they're full of cool people and amazing resources. Are
that part, the resources, because, when you talked about the traditional channels,
Mhm.
website, yeah, for sure, trade show, yeah, for sure. That's for people who already know a little bit about
Exactly.
franchising
Yeah.
or a little bit about your brand. And I've had the opportunity in the last, I would say, 6 months mainly, to talk to a lot of, different people from my community. And there's still a lack of knowledge and understanding around the opportunities that are within franchising.
Mhm.
Whether you are building a franchise or trying to build a franchise, maybe you're an entrepreneur that has a couple of units and they're operating really well, they're profitable, and you've been thinking about franchising, like there's room here for you. If you're trying to buy a franchise, there's still this misconception out there that it's restaurants and restaurants only.
I love
No.
restaurants.
Yeah,
What are
we're
you
both from
saying?
restaurants, QSR, full
No.
service, like the whole gambit. But there is a whole other world out there
There is.
beyond restaurants. And then finally, for the people who maybe have dreams of supplying a franchise brand, I think there's so much opportunity within supply chain, especially now,
Absolutely.
to diversify that supply chain, give opportunities to the communities that support your brand and build your brand. Like it's a win-win situation when you're partnering with the right people and the right brand. And so reputable organizations, community centers, nonprofits that have some skin in the game,
Yeah.
And again, have a great reputation. Why not start there?
Yeah.
Because you're just there isn't a building big enough to host everybody that has could have an opportunity in franchising. Like there is really so much more
Absolutely.
out there.
And I think another way that we can position ourselves and get in front of people who might not see themselves traditionally in this space, host intro to franchising sessions. Like make people feel welcome, give them that space to just learn the basics. Like what is franchising, right? Like at its core, like people don't always realize what you're actually buying when you engage with a franchisor is actually not the building. You're paying for that yourself usually. Yeah. It's a license. Yeah. You're acquiring a license to operate according to systems and standards. And I think when people realize that, sometimes there's a little bit of a light bulb that goes off, and it helps them understand, okay, that's where my role is. I'm still an entrepreneur. I'm still a business owner. I get to partner with and benefit from the strength of this brand.
Yes.
But that's where the line is. Okay, cool. So if you host intro to franchising sessions, you can help people understand what this space is all about, yes, what different types of parts of the process look like and why they exist.
Yes.
And by the way, if a part of your process, recruitment or approval, because they're sort of broken into two phases in my world, there's recruitment where we try to like find the people, and there's approval where we try to get them to sign.
Yeah.
If I can put it simply. Oh my gosh, I lost my train of thought. I was talking about the two different parts of the process. Okay, if a part of your process, if you cannot explain why it's part of your process, it should not be part of your process.
Repeat it for the people in the back, into that camera over there.
Yeah, if you cannot explain why a part of your process exists, it should not be part of that process, most likely.
Yes, I love that. Those internal reflective questions that should really sit with the franchisor and should be asked from time to time, so important. Because sometimes something that worked at one point in time, I mean, we've all been through the ups and downs of the last 5 years. Maybe it's time to revisit some of those processes and say, do we still need this?
Yeah. And when we ask that question, if we are asking the question, why is this part of our process? If the only answer we can come up with is, well, it's the way we've always done it. A corporation, an organization, a business that relies on the way we've always done it, that is the slow kiss of death for your growth.
Yeah.
The way we've always done it. And the way we've always done it got us this far. That's great. We have to keep going.
Yes. Evolving. Yes.
Yeah.
Love that. That's a hard one sometimes I find to overcome in franchising.
It is.
Because it's how we've always done things has a little bit more weight to it when there's a system built around it, that ideology, or to your point, when it has brought us this amount of success so far. But sometimes you're like, if you think that's success,
yeah,
making this little tweak.
Well, and that's the other thing too. If the only answer to why we're doing something is it's the way we've always done it, it's not a good answer. If the answer is it's the way we've always done it and these are the results it's driving, well, that's a better answer.
Yeah.
Maybe that's okay.
Yeah.
But if the only answer is it's the way we've always done it, I would beg you to consider that. Just sit with it for a little bit and ask yourself, am I saying that just because change is hard? And it is. Like, change is hard. I've at different points in my career helped build and rebuild and evaluate and audit different types of processes. And it's hard. It's not always fun.
Yeah.
And I understand why there's sometimes resistance to it and just wanting to stay in the comfort of the way we've always done things. We don't get better if we stay the way we always were.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the more leaders can acknowledge that it is hard, it might be uncomfortable, we might not even get it right the first time, and there might be missteps along the way, I think we get a little bit more commitment and we can hold each other more accountable to get through that hard stuff when we have a clear vision for where we're going.
Yeah, absolutely.
So having that clarity, knowing what the goalpost is and acknowledging, okay, like this might be a bumpy ride, but we'll get there together.
Yeah.
And we'll offer each other grace along the way. Yeah.
No, good talk.
So,
good talk. I think we sidetracked a little bit. I think it was a good one. Will it make the final cut? I hope so.
It all makes the final cut. It's raw, authentic, unapologetic, and hot.
Awesome.
And hot.
Ooh,
all right. Number 3.
Let's do it.
3. Yeah. You know what? I will add one more thing to that final question. The previous question. When we talked about where franchise brands need to show up, I remember, and it's something I do often when I'm on the trade show floor, because I meet a lot more connections walking the floor and talking to people than I ever have having a booth, or whether I'm representing myself or any other brands. Like, walking that floor and making those one-on-one connections are so valuable. I remember talking to a handful of people, and the majority of those folks came through non-traditional channels like church. Someone told me that their church bulletin had the franchise show posted. Someone told me that their community group of entrepreneurs mentioned something about a franchise show, so they decided to show up. And so being present in all these diverse spaces, it does have meaningful impact. And I've noticed a change over just even the last 2 years going to franchise shows. More families coming, more, right? A more mixed crowd coming. It is really evolving and diversifying. So,
and be ready for that. Like, truly, something I've done is I've kept kids' items at the booth. I've kept, stickers and little things like that. If you make the kid happy, everyone in the family is happy, right? So it's an opportunity to make people feel welcome. Absolutely.
Yes. Especially if it's aligned with your brand, because I know a lot of the brands that we talk about, especially in restaurants, families are always welcome, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
For real next time? This time, the next question? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, yay. This is always my favorite type question. So at Hot Perspectives, you know how important it is for me to champion courageous conversations, honest, open, transparent conversations with yourself and with others. It's really how we're going to get through the hard stuff. So this question is, what is one courageous conversation Fran Dev leaders should be having today?
One courageous conversation that Fran Dev leaders should be having today. Awesome. So I think, can I get to Fran Dev leaders specifically in a second? Can I talk
Yes.
about the organization first?
Yes.
Because we don't exist in a vacuum. We exist to support the organization as a whole, and
Absolutely.
our goals have to be very aligned to the organization's goals. That's our function in a business in Fran Dev, right? We help the business grow, continue, perpetuate. I think a courageous question that leaders of organizations need to ask is perhaps why we are not devoting resources, or why we are not opening ourselves up to considering new ways of doing things when it comes to the human experience, when it comes to inclusion, all of these different things. Like what is the real heart of it? Why is this either something we're sort of opting out of? Why is this something that becomes just part of the people team's role? Why is this something that's just extra work on the corner of somebody's desk? Are we actually making tangible moves as an organization? And most of the case, I think the question is why not? And that's a courageous conversation we need to have. In no other part of our business do we get the luxury of complacency. Everything else about business changes and evolves over time.
Yes.
And our approach to inclusion as a whole has to as well. Right? If we say we're about growth, if we say we want to evolve and remain at the top of our fields, we have to have those conversations too. And I know sometimes people go, oh, it's political. It's not political. It's people. It's human beings. It's not that hard. We are overcomplicating it if we make it political. It's just about people. And I don't care what your business model is, you need people to fund it.
Yes.
So that's something you should care about. So that's at the organizational level. At the Fran Dev level, okay,
let me chime in. Let me chime in because, we know that there is 100% consequence to action and inaction when it comes to building inclusive brands. We have seen many examples of it over the last couple of months. Some organizations, businesses on the brink because of it, seeing serious declines in business because people hold the power. We have the purchasing power. Consumers have the power. And so if you are not focused on and prioritizing making your brand inclusive and making the image and reputation of your brand and the foundation of your brand inclusive, you can easily get left behind.
You can.
And I'd like to see as well more leaders bring inclusion and what it means to be inclusive into more conversations across the entire ecosystem, not just with the pretty marketing images that get put out there.
Yeah, so to answer the question specifically for Fran Dev, so one courageous conversation we can have specifically in Fran Dev, I think one question that you could ask is, does our process match our marketing? Does our process match our marketing? What we say to people, is that what they actually experience? If we say that we have all of these support systems and this type of culture, do we actually, right? And I mean that like,
how would you know?
The rest of the system. How would you know? That's a fantastic question.
How would you know? Because I'll tell you, I've met some folks that think they're doing the most, the greatest. And then when you start peeling back the layers of the thing, or you ask the people that they claim have these connections and feelings about their brands, there's a disconnect there. And so I'm really curious to know your answer.
Fantastic question.
How would you know?
So it's really important to me, ever since I stepped into the world of Fran Dev, there's sort of this, I never really know if it's fair to say that Fran Dev is sales. I think it's kind of like sales, but it's not traditional sales. It's this weird blend of recruitment and sales and everything else. But any person selling anything should know their product. And so I think it is the responsibility of people working in Fran Dev to be informed and stay informed on the rest of their organization. We are the face. We are the face to people coming and exploring, investing sometimes their life savings betting on themselves, yes, but also betting on our brand. And so it's our responsibility to stay connected to the other departments
Yes.
because we represent them in the early stages. Then there's so many benefits to that, right? If you're very well connected, you can help manage candidate expectations. You set the tone for the rest of the relationship as you hand off to training and ops. But, you as a Fran Dev leader, are you aware of the different conversations happening around the rest of your organization? Are you plugged into your marketing and ops teams? Do you have good relationships with your coworkers and leaders of those other departments?
And are those people talking about your brand in the same way?
Exactly. Yeah. So that's something that's a bit of internal work that I think should be done by an ethical and responsible Fran Dev representative or leader.
Yeah.
You have to know what you're representing. And a great thing as well, one thing that I did each time I joined a new franchisor, I asked to do parts of the process that a candidate would. So for example, a lot of different brands have, depending on what they call them, a workshop, a discovery day, an in-restaurant experience. I've worked in restaurants. I know what a kitchen looks like, right? You don't have to teach me how to turn on the deep fryer. I know.
Yes.
But I wanted to go through those days exactly as my candidates do. So I wanted to see what the process felt like in the parts that are not directly under my control, the parts that are collaborative. I wanted to see and feel it. So that's something that I would encourage if you're someone in Fran Dev and you've not gone through those types of parts of the process that we ask our candidates to do. You might learn something.
Yes.
Ask, is there a monthly marketing meeting I can sit on? Ask is there a monthly ops meeting I can even just be a fly on the wall?
Yeah.
And know when it's your space to pipe in and advocate for your candidates and things like that. But know when it's your space to learn as well, so that you can be a sponge and absorb this information and represent it accurately to your candidates.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And another big piece, an important piece of that ecosystem, I mean, I know you mentioned across departments and how important that is. And I love that you brought in even the in-store experience, because especially in restaurants, if you've only ever experienced it from the customer side and you've never been behind the counter or in the back kitchen, it can be very overwhelming. And it's a good idea to get a sense of, like, is this actually for me? Is this a space that I can see myself spending time in, learning about? Because I've also had potential candidates drop off, having owned that part, the training in-store experience part, operations interview part. I've had candidates say, you know what, it was a lot more than I expected. I can't imagine having to make, this product every day. I didn't realize there were so many steps involved. I don't actually know if this is something that I'm interested in anymore.
And that's okay. It's okay that can be a candidate drop-off point. If it's not for them, I'm glad we know that before we sign an agreement.
Exactly.
But could we have known that even earlier in the process? If the person in the initial stages of candidate-facing conversations could accurately represent what happens in the business, could we have saved everybody time and resources even earlier? And it's okay. Sometimes they'll still get to that point and it might still be a small drop-off. Yes. And again, drop-off is not always a bad thing.
Right.
But we want to be efficient. We want to be respectful of everyone's time and our own time, right? The more that you are able to represent in an accurate sense to candidates early on, the better for everybody. So that's something that someone really should do.
Yeah.
But jumping kind of back, if I can, to courageous conversations. So again, just that, I think the one we kind of did this, which
that happens
awesome.
On the show.
Okay, it happens in my life. So that one we just talked about was, are we walking the talk? Are we actually, marketing what we're doing from a Fran Dev perspective? But I think another conversation that we can ask, if we have the courage internally, if we, if we're brave enough, are we brave enough to commit to long-term strategies? I think sometimes in Fran Dev, we are sometimes moving at the speed of light, handling hundreds, if you're lucky, of candidates. Sometimes Frandev teams tend to be a little under-resourced. We can feel sometimes in different phases of business too. Sometimes it's seasonal.
And sometimes a lot of that's how a lot of emerging brands
absolutely.
And brands go up and down in cycles too, right?
They emerging go through brands, you might not have the luxury of having anyone dedicated to Frandev. Exactly. I've seen that, and I get it. So, and I get it. When you're stuck kind of in the tunnel vision of I just need to get through this day, you might not be thinking about how to build long-term strategy and how to bring different people from different backgrounds into your network. So I think I'm talking about things like mentorships or special programs or even joint venture, these types of things that are going to take a little bit of time and resources to develop and maybe even have a cost to them. Mm-hmm. Are we brave enough to make that type of investment that won't pay off for 3 years, 5 years, however many years? Right. But are we brave enough also to consider what the benefit of that could be? Are we brave enough to consider where we could be in those 5 years or however many years, because we are investing in people who are going to help us and be our partners in continuing the legacy of our brand? So are we brave enough to think long term? And I'll be honest, that's not something that I'm an expert in yet. I think I'll be the first to admit I've been in Frandev roles where I've had to focus on what I'm doing now, or there's been other rebuilding processes, fundamental things like building interview grids that take priority, and that's okay. But can we at some point sit and ask that question?
Asking the right questions. That is such a big part of approaching things courageously, right? Is having the courage to ask the right questions, the hard questions. And I don't know if you'd agree, but I find having that sounding board, having a trusted advisor, having a third-party organization come in that might be a subject matter expert in whatever problem it is that you're trying to resolve. Maybe if you want to increase representation somewhere, but you don't have any experience with the community that you're trying to reach, you don't just say, okay, well, nobody here has that experience, so never mind. Never mind. We're not going to say we're never going to expand into Quebec because we don't have anybody here that speaks French. We don't say that.
We say the opposite. We say, and this is not necessarily true for the brand I'm with right now, but we don't say, oh, we're not in Quebec right now, so we're not going to expand in Quebec. We say the opposite. We say, we're not in Quebec. We have to go there. Why not?
We have to go there. Let's figure it out.
That's exactly what we say, right? Why do we work the opposite way sometimes?
Picky choosy. Yeah.
No, I love that. I love that way of kind of flipping it.
You have to. And it's something that takes active presence, active reflection, taking a moment to slow down, even in those have to act now moments, and having, trusted advisors and people in your corner that can cheer you on and remind you of the commitments that you've made to the long-term strategy.
Yeah.
Accountability, right? Doesn't happen without it.
Oh, good talk.
Okay.
Next
question.
I think I just did my happy wiggle. I usually do that when food is coming to my table. So that's how I feel right now. Oh, I'm not supposed to look at it. That's yours. I don't know why I peeked. I'm sorry.
It's okay. I forgive you. Oh, this one's literally probably one of my favorites. Okay. Let's unpack culture fit. Culture fit. What does it mean to you, and how does it play a role in assessing a potential candidate? And I need to start off by saying, I am really curious about your take on culture fit, because it's something, we're talking about terms that get thrown out there that are misunderstood potentially across.
Maybe not the right terms.
All these things. Culture fit is one of those ones that comes up quite often in franchisor rooms and space. So I'm really curious to hear your take on it.
So culture fit for me is a term that belongs in a trio of other terms. So I would say culture fit, culture add, and values alignment. there's some interplay between all three of those things. And I'll
Rewind.
I'm going to
What are the
explain.
three? What are the three?
So culture fit, culture add, and values alignment are three.
Okay.
There's some interplay between the three of them. They can be friends, but they each have their own meaning and their own role. And so to me, culture fit kind of speaks to what we are doing, what already exists as a culture within our system. And I think there's a risk if we focus only on culture fit. Our risk is if you do what you've always done, you'll get what you always got. And what are you missing? If we're not considering what we're missing, if we focus only on culture fit, there is a risk. Culture add, I tend to have a little bit of a preference to culture add over fit. I think culture add is about thinking about what fresh ideas, what fresh perspectives, hot perspectives you might bring, you might be able to bring into your network, right? Like what can enrich the system?
Yes.
The question behind culture add is how can we enrich the system? And I think that's a little more exciting of a question. And then the third term that I think has some interplay there is values alignment. And I actually, here's my conspiracy theory. I think when people say culture fit, in their heart, they probably actually mean a lot of the time values alignment. And values alignment is really important. I think values alignment is about things like commitment to service, things like integrity, things like community focus, the values of the brand. Does the candidate have the same values as the brand? Do those values that are fundamental align? And a value is different than culture. If I can say that. So that's my little.
And values are different than culture.
Yeah.
How are values different than culture?
Oh, fantastic question. So values are kind of like core motivations to me. Values are those guiding lights that we follow. It's part of the brand identity and part of how we grow and who we are. It's
how
the
we show up in the world.
How we show up. But culture is a little bit different. Culture lives in the day-to-day. Culture lives in the attitudes and the language and the ways we interact with each other. Culture is in the day-to-day. And that's what can be a little bit different, right? Culture is in how we dress. Culture is in how we show up in the morning. Culture is, even in office culture, right? The person who shows up to work, and they're dressed in a bright color and everyone else at the office looks like they called each other that morning to coordinate what they were wearing, right? Culture is a little bit different. And culture can sometimes make people feel excluded or actually exclude them beyond just feeling excluded. They can actually exclude people because it's saying we're only going to accept you if you fit into this mold that we've kind of built. So culture fit is not necessarily where I would prioritize my time. I would prioritize values alignment. I think that's a lot more integral to the business.
Yes.
And I would also consider value add. How can I enrich the organization through the candidates that I'm helping bring into the system? And that's not saying that you can't ever bring in two candidates who have similar stories and perspectives.
Right.
That's not what we're saying. What we're saying is don't limit to that.
Right. Yeah, I'm glad that you kind of spent some time on how those two things are different.
Yeah.
How
do you think they're different?
Yeah.
Do values... I get to ask questions too?
Of course. Of course. Values for me is the things the parts of you that hold you together, irrespective of who you're in front of, what environment you're in. It's the things that you hold true to even when no one's watching.
Yep.
Culture for me is more of a so values is the foundation and culture is the dressing, like how you show up, the energy you choose to bring, how you choose to wear your hair, what you choose to wear, the energy that you bring to the space. And where I kind of see culture fit and even some of the other terms that you used jumbled and muddy is when they're used as the sole thing to disqualify or sometimes qualify a candidate. And I think as a leader, it's important to pause and just ask deeper questions. So for me, when I would, let's say, pass on a candidate and someone says, well, I interviewed them and I didn't think they were a great fit, culture fit, I always ask why. And not just why, give me your reason, but why, give me your reason, and can you also provide some examples? What about how they answered that question made you think they didn't have a culture of food safety or value for food safety? Maybe that's really important here. What about how they showed up made you think that they weren't taking things seriously, or that they disrespected your time because they were 5 minutes late?
Yeah. Or this is one. So there was a candidate, and I usually do interviews in pairs. I think it's really great for just making sure that I check my own biases too. So I typically interview in pairs.
That's a good tip.
There was a candidate, and this one happened to be a face-to-face interview. Nowadays, we tend to do them virtually, but this candidate showed up and they chewed gum for the duration of their interview. And I remember my co-interviewer at the time felt like that was incredibly disrespectful. But let's stop and think about that for a moment. We don't know that. We don't know that they intended anything by popping a piece of gum into their mouth. Why do we think that?
In fact, they might be thinking,
I have bad breath, I should be respectful. Right? Maybe it was,
I want to make sure I have the freshest of breath. If they're going to remember something about me, it's going to be my breath.
Right? Yeah. So we need to stop just think about that for a little bit, right? Because that kind of calls back to culture. Well, we don't chew gum in the office here. It's okay, but that's what we're gonna disqualify. Listen, Frank Dev is hard. You're gonna, do you know how hard we work to get candidates? And then the actual conversion rate, it's rough out there sometimes. There's economic pressures, there's competition out there. Qualified candidates, man, if you're gonna turn someone down over chewing gum, I hope you have a full pipeline.
Right. Right. Yes, and good for you for also bringing that perspective and asking those questions, because it's your co-interviewer might also have been brought up in an environment even outside of your workplace environment, a personal experience where they're I've been always taught that this is very disrespectful, or this means you don't. There's actually this is a little no, actually let's talk about it, because we both have restaurant backgrounds, and we know that food safety is paramount. It is everything. It takes one food safety incident to completely
and the empire
crumble a brand, right? Not to mention, I want to feel good about telling my friends or family, go and enjoy a meal here, right? I want to be proud of my brand. And something I think is really important in the recruitment process, as we talk about culture and we talk about values and kind of how those intermingle. I've met some great operators in my time, mean well, intend well, follow the systems and the rules, but may question a specific decision. I'm going to use food safety because I'm here in Brampton. We're in Brampton today, and there's been a lot of news in social media, specifically around food safety and restaurants here in this city. And I want to spend some time unpacking a little bit how a culture of food safety, how important it is to a brand, and where we can spend more time building that culture, because culture can be built, culture can be taught, culture can change.
Culture
the values is at the foundation don't really change much, but that culture shifts and flows. And when I see the food safety culture starting to change with a brand, especially a food brand that I personally have a connection to, or I want to see do well and thrive, I think there's some work to do around establishing and differentiating when someone maybe comes from a different experience or standard of what food safety looks like and is expected to be in another part of the world versus here in Canada or in North America. And it's not just about this and us versus them. We're right, they're wrong, we're forward, they're backward. We flip it and look at places like Europe. There are foods and products that are approved here in North America that would not be approved in places in Europe. So when I talk about different expectations around food safety and what that means around the world and in different places, how do you see that getting the attention, more of the attention and the time that it deserves at the Fran, Dev, and recruitment stage, so that we're not dealing with so many food safety crises down the line? Where do you think the disconnect is happening? Where do you think we can make some changes to start closing the gap on that? Because I am seeing a lot more of it, especially here in the city.
Yeah, I mean, this is
a
a
long-winded
question,
but I wanted to give some context.
I may not be super aware of what's happening here in Brampton. I'm from Kingston, and I'm in for the day hanging out with you, and I'm happy to be here. But I have, I think, a sense of kind of what you're talking about, the different sort of cultural challenges and the differences. When we talk about food safety as a culture, to get from behavior to culture, I think, is the question that we're exploring here. A behavior is things like keeping your temp logs, making sure you're managing your time temperature, making sure that your, sanitizer is being tested at the appropriate concentrations, all those things. Those are behaviors.
Yes.
How do we go from behavior to culture? And in my opinion, the answer is buy-in. Yes. And how do you get buy-in? You help people understand.
The why. Yes.
The why. So I think, and I'll talk about the Fran Dev side of it in a minute, but I'm gonna call back to my restaurant days. Which I look back so fondly. I wouldn't be surprised if I ended back in the four walls of a restaurant one day. It was just so much grit and glory, right? Just I loved it.
Excitement of the day, right? You never know what you're gonna get.
I lived for it. It was great. But in terms of getting buy-in to go from what are the desired behaviors and making those behaviors part of culture. Beginning from the training process and the ops team, I think we want to really help people understand why. We want to illustrate things like hand washing and things like that why they're important. There's lots of different ways we can teach people. We have to remember that people learn in different methods. Yes. People need to sometimes be shown or taught things in more than one way or more than one time. You cannot just say, well, I gave you that one virtual boring course one time, so you should know everything. There's ways we can teach people. An athlete. An athlete doesn't
they don't go to the gym one time and say, now I'm ready.
I say that. I've not even gone to the gym one time, but athletes go more than once, I imagine.
They build the habits. They practice it.
They do. Yes. So it's those things that we build the habits, we practice. We allow space for people to ask questions, share their experience, and sort of ask why we do things the way that we do. I think, again, the key from going from just desired behaviors and checklists to culture is buy-in. And we can do that in training and ops, I think, is a place where that lives pretty well. But from a Fran Dev perspective, it's a great question as well. I think from a Fran Dev perspective, if we are talking about experience versus skills and what skills have been taken from experience, we can ask questions that help us understand where the candidate is at in their current understanding of food safety practices here, right? We can ask questions, about like, hey, like, are you familiar with time temperature controls? What does that mean? Do you know what the danger zone is? Yeah. Yes. And don't ask them like this. Don't go, do you know what the danger zone is? You can ask openly. Sometimes it's just tone. Do you know what the danger zone is? I've never heard that before. Oh, well, it's actually, this specific range of temperatures where bacteria grows more quickly.
Yeah.
right? We help people understand. So we can have those conversations early on. I think another great place for food safety to really be featured is in that workshop or discovery day, that hands-on
Yes.
day. We can have
Yes.
little conversations about it and kind of talk about it early in the process, but I think it lives in a hands-on environment.
100% agree.
And honestly, so here is a theory I have, and you're the one who's, more like currently in the ops world. My theory is how you choose to structure your days and your training program, what you choose to teach first and what you
Yes.
choose to teach last should be two of your most impactful things. Right? If you choose, for example, the first in-restaurant training day, you spend that day on food safety, cultural, practices in your restaurant, you're sending a message to that candidate is that food safety is so important that we don't do anything else till we've done this.
Yes. That matters.
Right?
That matters.
Like I think that the order in which you train, I think can make a bit of a difference as well. So I think that
Yes.
it's such an interesting topic because you're absolutely right. Where our standards are different. Just because someone else comes from another way doesn't mean they're dirty or gross. It doesn't mean that they can't comply with Canadian laws and standards.
Yes.
But again, our job as a franchisor is to teach.
Acknowledge that and then develop the systems, processes, and put the resources behind making sure that doesn't become...
My goodness, they're paying a royalty for something, aren't they?
Yes.
I would hope.
Yes, they're our customers too, right?
Yeah.
Franchisees and franchise partners are customers too. Yeah, and I think just to add on to that, because there is the franchise partner and candidate recruitment, but there's also the tools that we develop to support leaders in hiring people for their own businesses.
Yeah.
So how are we building those systems and processes to support the food safety culture? Or are we just telling them on day one of their orientation and then never talking about it again, or only talking about it when, an audit gets done, a month or two from now?
Mm-hmm.
So what you measure, what you talk about, what you focus on becomes a part of that culture, becomes top of mind. And
it's so funny. This is like anecdotal, and it's a story I picked up outside of franchising in restaurants. My little sister is a teacher. She's an educator. And so sometimes I'll be talking to her, and then immediately after, my algorithm feeds me like educator content, which is awesome. And I actually think it's pretty cool. And I was discussing with her, I think this was years ago now, teachers were trying to show kindergarten classes the importance of hand washing, which is important in kindergarten and beyond.
Yes.
Right? And
for everyday life.
For everyday life.
Yes.
What the teacher did is she covered her hands in wet paint, and she proceeded to walk around the classroom and touch things, and it just showed the transfer of paint. And she goes, this paint is like germs. The only difference is we cannot see the germs and the bacteria.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to wash our hands. And how do we wash our hands? Do we do 10 seconds shake dry? And she did that. And of course,
yes,
green paint all over her hands, right? I think it was such a visual way to do it. And I'm an adult. I know that hand washing is important. I have never forgotten that TikTok.
Powerful.
So I think outside of the box. Think about interesting, fun, memorable ways that we can show the importance of things to people.
And a key part of what you just shared there, so thank you very much for sharing it, is knowing your audience.
Yeah, knowing your audience. Because there's people that that's maybe a little too little kid for, and it might not.
But could you imagine taking an ops manual to a kindergarten class and being read this and do this, right? It's probably not going to land. It's probably not going to resonate. So knowing your audience, and when you know that your audience looks like this, learns like this, might come from a culture that has this expectation or standard around something as important as food safety, it should be baked into everything that you do all the time. And I think that's a really great question to unpack. And
absolutely.
I love that we spent time here, because culture fit is just one of those questions. Yeah. So that is all we have time for in terms of questions, but I think we really, delve deep into some good topics. We brought an inclusive lens, hopefully, for people to understand what, not just Fran Dev, we talked a little bit about marketing, a little bit about ops and training. And I think that's how Fran Dev is most successful, is by getting a little bit of
I think so too.
everything in there to make sure we hit all the bases and qualify the right people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What a pleasure it's been to sit here on this couch with you and chat.
See how quick time goes by?
It's so fast.
Thank you so much, Allison, for joining. And can you just look into the camera and tell people, if they do want to get in touch with you, want to vibe out with you, where can they find you?
I'm probably most easily found on LinkedIn. You're welcome to come give me a follow, shoot me a message. I'd be happy to say hello. I'm always happy to chat about restaurants, about inclusion and building for inclusive practices. I'm just always happy to chat about all things growth and learning, and I learn from these conversations too, so it's a little selfish. But probably my LinkedIn is the best way to say hi to me.
Yeah. Sounds great. So you heard her. If you want to get in touch with Allison, LinkedIn is the spot. I'm also on LinkedIn if you want to get in touch.
She has a great LinkedIn.
Thank you. And if there are any questions that you want to hear, or topics that you want to hear explored on the show, drop it in the comments, send me a DM, or visit the website, and we'll get in touch. Thank you so much, Allison.
Thank you.